All right. Hot off the presses, Trump just gave the J6ers reparations. More specifically, he sued several government agencies and had his lackeys settle with him for $1.776 billion that he intends to pay out domestic terrorists with. No, that 1776 isn't an accident. Whether this is legal or not isn't really a question. It isn't legal to use taxpayer money as a slush fund to pay out insurrectionists and convicted criminals that he later pardoned. That bullshit isn't what this video is about, though. I just can't think of a better way to introduce today's discussion, which is about black reparations, after two viewers reached out to me blowing the whistle. They think that this group, Freedmen Nation, is a scam, and it's my job to figure out if that's the case. So I interviewed the founder. This story veers into the Chud the Builder shooting scandal, breaking down practical reparations in a way that just might work, and watching black people's backs at the same time. Specifically, the type of black person who's already pretty mad at me. Big shout out to Monarch for sponsoring this investigation. Alongside y'all's Patreon support, this makes the channel viable. I'll keep it quick. It's all about cash flow this time. I like to visualize my gains and expenses as opposed to looking at numbers alone. The graph can be filtered down to the day, if you want to see that for some reason, or the month or the week, etc. And the bars can sit next to each other in the group view, as opposed to seeing them stacked on top of each other by hitting stacked. Whatever works best for y'all. As far as the data itself, I got everything I need with color coding: income, expenses, net income, and savings. I spent almost as much as I earned last month, but I was moving, so I need y'all to get off my back about my money management. I'm trying my best. I had to buy lamps, and I was going to events and restaurants. Goals are the next window, and it's made to be really efficient. You can start by saving up or paying down. Choose which goal you want to save up for, a target amount and date. Then link one of your accounts to get rolling. To try it out for yourself and get 50% off for an entire year, which is crazy, use the link in the description or the code CamJames50. There's a QR code on screen too. You can just scan that. Last summer, I released a 93-minute documentary about Tariq Nasheed, the originator of the term Foundational Black American, or FBA, and founder of an informal, cultish movement of black Americans obsessed with separating themselves from anyone who isn't descended from American enslaved people. They want to do this because they don't want anyone else receiving the reparations that don't exist yet. If you want a full exploration into that group and the unstable grifter who started it, watch that video. In this one, I'm discussing and interviewing Arthur Watkins, the inventor of the Fill Station Pillow Kiosk and founder of the Freedmen Reparations Fund Trust. It's a private organization that takes legal action to defend black people, raises money on a rolling basis to do that work, and verifies its members' direct lineage from American slavery. This is going to piss off all the FBAs who've been claiming I'm Jamaican for a year, but I knew I had no choice if I wanted my investigation to be thorough. I verified my family lineage back to the 1800s for the first time ever and joined the group. Okay, Freedmen Nation is the membership and verification arm of the Freedmen Reparations Fund Trust. As I said before, I'm a member now. I trace my lineage back to an ancestor born in 1820 who was on the 1880 census. My mom's side is from Georgia and my dad's side's from Kentucky. It's actually tough to trace both sides back because paperwork might not exist on the popular sites they link you to, like MyHeritage and even the US Census records. The trust runs a perpetual fundraiser called the American Freedmen Legal Fund and exists as a private membership association, or PMA. For those who don't know what a freedman is, that term refers to the descendants of American enslaved people. Honestly, it's not a term people really use anymore. It's kind of old-fashioned. That definition tells us that it covers FBAs, ADOS, Solon, Soul Americans, and every other denomination of Black Americans. Arthur saw the divisions emerging among Black Americans seeking reparations, positioned himself and this trust as a legal resource for us, and offered a way to officially register as freedmen. So we'll be ready when and if reparations happen. This video exists to determine whether all of this is legit or not. More than one FBA claimed I'm a tool of the CIA ever since I covered their movement and showed them that Tariq is a grifter.
Edited hit pieces. There's one dude, this dude made damn near a documentary lying about me, slandering me, some tether. That's some CIA shit because it was looked like it was produced. It took money to do that. And I do films. You just ain't putting up shit willy nilly. You know? That's some shit coming from the top.
Yeah, apparently my videos are good enough to make terrible filmmakers like him think I have a team working for me. When in reality, I had one research assistant and made that shit in my apartment. Anyway, since this organization claims to represent FBAs and everyone else, this whole video is me watching y'all's back. Despite how often you've called me a Jamaican tether. Hopefully we can put that one to rest. Following Arthur on Twitter is a lot. I joined with a ghost account since I don't use that terrible app anymore and clocked the patterns in his communication about the trust and racial injustice. Some of these were sent to me by the whistleblowers too. There's occasional arguments like this one where he defends Tariq against perceived slander. Times where he seems to be clarifying the mission of the trust, legal actions they're taking against the offending party in all these racial injustice cases, these promo videos that are always 100% AI generated, and a lot more.
Reclaiming the Roots, Freedmen Reparations Fund. Trust declares hip hop and rap as Freedmen founded art forms.
Almost, I would say, just about all of the marketing materials, all of the presentation is heavily utilizing AI,
Right.
including voiceovers for existing videos and things like that. And so I was curious, as a person who looks into financial fraud, manipulation, investigations, that type of thing, one thing I noticed as a through line is a heavy use of AI. And so that can make some people suspicious. Why is that the main tool used by the trust to market and design everything?
Because it's the future.
Mm.
The future is here. People are using AI on just about everything, including even accounting these days. Starting to use AI. Lawyers are using AI as the paralegal these days. So it doesn't take over what we actually are doing, or as far as how we do it. We know exactly, like right now, we actually we know for the future, uh, what you put in AI is what you're going to get out of AI. So I have structured the say for ChatGPT. ChatGPT now has everything I memorized for how the trust is actually structured. So I just can put one input, I can go to a new thread, put an input, it knows everything I said before.
Mm-hmm.
So using it as a data bank for what you're trying to achieve as far as your either your corporation, your even as an influencer, it can actually put things together for things you need to how you have things scripted. So it is a it takes a lot of the work off of me when I know that okay, this is where I need to go in the direction I need to go. All of my declarations are built inside of the AI, but we uploaded everything there, so it goes back and fish back off those declarations, and that's where we use the AI. As far as heavily use it, I'm not a person that want to be out front. I'm not a influencer.
Mm-hmm.
That's not my person. I don't step in front of video like you guys do. That's I'm for. I use it because it's for everybody. It's not me. I'm not trying to be a personality of anything.
Okay, I had to add this in somewhere. Throughout this video, you're going to see me outline the reasons why I don't think this is a scam. Like, there's no evidence to support that. That being said, I also can't co-sign following this organization anywhere. What you see on screen is examples of not only Arthur himself, but other people who are in this, either in this group or who subscribe to the FBA ideology with flags in their profile name, which is always a dead giveaway, mocking other members of the Black diaspora. In one case, mocking Rep. Ilhan Omar for a misspeaking of World War II as World War 11 because she was moving a little too fast, and insults her intelligence directly. In this other case, you see them mocking a man doing an Ethiopian dance from a region where they dance mostly with their lower half of their body. There's other regions where they dance with the upper half of their body and a mix of the two, etc. And I'll just say this: any black person who mocks other members of the black diaspora is the ops 100% of the time. There's an undertone underneath this veneer of respectability and doing things the quote unquote right way. There's an undertone of hate and xenophobia and cruelty that's directed towards the birthplace of all humanity. Like, it doesn't even make logical sense. And I know a lot of y'all think you aren't from Africa, but you are. Just That's just a fact. I'll reiterate that I can't co-sign supporting this organization when this is the kind of behavior undertaken by their leadership. Most posts are accompanied with a fundraising call to action. So I asked the man himself about how the trust approaches the concept of reparations.
The trust function on reparations is more capitalistic. We're not going specifically after reparations. We actually are creating the reparation structure underneath the trust by working with corporations. They can sponsor, do a sponsor historical marker and continue with sponsorship of our preservation of our historical markers across the country. That way it pours money into the trust to pay out the beneficiaries reparations. So we're more focused on that, but also we're focused on we actually are vendors in California, New York, some other states. So when reparations start to move, then we can verify that population for the people who should actually get reparations. That's pretty much our function. We work with nonprofits as they continue to work with the state and local governments on reparations, but we don't actually inject ourselves in those talks because that's the nonprofit end of it. But what we do, we go on the back end of it and try to clean up how the money should be actually sent out to the people who should be getting it, as far as the people who are supposed to be attached to the status itself. So those people are paid correctly. We actually help them with the record keeping. So then those people are actually paid.
There was a specific quote about the PMA structure that I want to kind of reiterate. It said in a post from April 11th, 2025, where you were responding to the U.S. Treasury Department, you claimed that the trust has the authority to, quote, lawfully manage reparations on behalf of individuals who elect to opt in, end quote. So how does a private organization with no ties to the federal government or a state government have a lawful right to manage potential funds that are going to be dispersed to this community?
Well, like I said earlier, that we don't manage any funds from the state. We actually facilitate. So we actually sent the letter, actually our declarations to the U.S. Treasury. They acknowledged it and filed it. We haven't had any State Department to come and rebut any of our declarations. We put those declarations in place for one, for history, two, for positioning of authority. Like I said earlier, if you don't have any authority over what you're doing, you might as well be in the be in the stands, not on the football field. So we actually take that approach because we want to make sure that the verified population will continue to grow. We're leaning into the future because when you said that how do we actually bring people opt in? People are already going to be opt in as verified freemen in the future for when reparations does happen. So they can either opt in to have the money put into the trust, or they can opt in, not opt in, and have the money go directly to them. So we're not trying to actually facilitate anything. So they have options in what they want to do. Just like anything, we just want to make sure that some people may opt in and say, "Look, we want you to put the money that's coming from the government into the trust, into a stock portfolio." So it really depends on those people. Once we actually have those people in place to be able to do that for them, they may want to opt in and have their money go into a real estate investment that's under the trust.
Y'all know by now that I'm always looking for the manipulative angle to everything. And I'm going to be honest and say I couldn't find it here. My initial suspicion was that the American Freedmen Legal Fund was the scam. But then I discovered that they're not even raising enough money on a month to month basis to make that scam significant. I'll break that down in detail in a minute. Arthur's social media following is the main source of promotion for that fundraiser. And there's less than 200 people involved in the official Freedmen Nation group. Of course, that could just mean they're at the beginning of that process and that the goal is to achieve mass volume before misappropriating those funds. That's where the audits come in. Arthur sent me a lot of paperwork verifying what he was telling me about the trust. And one of those is the April 2026 financial audit. The organization provides one of these every month to help members track where those donations are going. According to this, what they're paying themselves to do all this work amounts to less than minimum wage when you consider that this is a period spanning about 10 months. Every dollar is accounted for pretty consistently. And if I had to nitpick, I'd disclose that I asked Arthur for info on the nonprofits they work with, and he said they couldn't disclose that information. The reason he gave is that there's individuals in these organizations that wouldn't want their freedman status disclosed or want their business partnerships to be public knowledge. I see merit in that, so I'll leave it up to y'all to determine how you feel about it. Ultimately, he doesn't owe me that information. The next factor I considered when determining whether this was a scam or not was whether or not there was a fee to join the group. After getting your genealogy done, I went through every step, joined multiple genealogy tracing sites to get my tree built out. Then I submitted it piece by piece to Freedmen Nation. They got back to me pretty quickly and they needed a few more documents to close the gap between my parents and one of my more distant relatives. So I found those and submitted those. Not only did I find out more about myself than I ever knew in the process, I got approved and was able to join the group without them asking me for a single dollar. I fully expected some kind of membership charge, but there just wasn't one. In this case, the financial exploitation simply doesn't have enough evidence to back it up. The people who asked me to investigate this organization might not like that, but that's my conclusion. Now, the remaining question is pretty straightforward. Are they doing this the right way? And will it help Black people seeking community and reparations? Let's explore a couple of the controversial incidents Arthur and Freedmen Nation have gotten involved in, which should give us insight into the intention behind all of this. In case y'all haven't heard by now, and I'm jealous if you haven't, this racist streamer called Chud the Builder, real name Dalton Etherly, went from intentionally targeting Black people with racist content and dropping the N-word on live streams.
Why you saying for?
You might want to back up. You're going to get sprayed.
Why the you saying?
Because I can say it's America.
But why?
Because it's America.
But why?
Because I can say what I want.
To catching a real attempted murder charge, as well as reckless endangerment and disorderly conduct, after rallying a Black man up and shooting him once the inevitable fight popped off. He got shot too, and claims it was self-defense for the record. He got here by farming content for Clippers, a type of social media figure who acts as the middleman between people like him, who make longer streams and content, and you, by sharing short clips from their videos in an effort to get people mad or excited about something. They're monetizing short attention spans, basically. It was always where social media was heading, especially after the invention of live streaming. These Clippers are making six figures a month via this symbiotic relationship with the content creators. They know clips drive engagement, so they incentivize people like Etherly to do increasingly dangerous or wild shit on camera. Arthur posted a lot about Chud in the run-up to him getting kicked off of Kick, the popular streaming platform he operated on. I've never been on Kick, and doubt I ever will, since I don't even use Twitch. Arthur was mostly claiming that Freedmen Nation is holding Etherly accountable, and the evidence he posted was of this notice being acknowledged by Kick at 10 a.m. and Chud having his account revoked on Twitch 2 hours later. Arthur pairs this claim with documents showing that those things happened and a caption that encourages people to donate to the fund. The whistleblowers that reached out to me insist that he's performing what's called a paperwork attack. They also insist that Kick banned him without Arthur's involvement at all, and that this lien and conjunctive order that Freedmen Nation issued against Etherly are beyond their real authority, and that Freedmen Nation is using their private membership association status to unilaterally attack and penalize public figures. I asked Arthur directly. There's some allegations from some parties that reached out to me about the trust's actions on Twitter specifically that Kick, the main platform Chet was operating on, banned him, for 3 days based on public harassment, and then it was an indefinite ban after that because the viral clips were causing a massive viewer backlash, and then that they had already demonetized him and pulled his verification badge before you and the trust already claimed that you had a lien on his assets and things like that. And so these outside parties that reached out to me about this series of actions, they're alleging that you're essentially jumping in with a lot of noise and paperwork, attempting to take credit for things other people have done. There's other instances that come to mind. The Houston Fuel Depot incident, where Quanell X and Dr. Candace Matthews were already doing work on the ground, and then you and the trust were vocalizing, you on behalf of the trust were vocalizing that you and the trust and the fund were doing all these actions, but in reality, according to the people who are alleging this, these actions were already underway or done or completed in those instances. How do you respond to the charges of things like, paperwork? They call it the paperwork illusion, or what do they call it? There's a specific term for this paperwork attack, where it's just like filing, and it's kind of like acting as a smokescreen for other manipulators, other people who are actually scammers. They use this kind of approach to take credit for things that other people are doing and to create this kind of artificial authority for their organization. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. There's probably some people out there doing that. That's the reason why we actually come back with evidence that we're actually speaking to Kick. We have spoken to Kick plenty of times. We actually have posted on the American Freedom Legal Fund the communications between us and Kick.
All right, this example shows us how Freedmen Nation handles cases where something racist or discriminatory happens to a specific black person. Activists were upset after a gas station clerk made a boy pee outside and then shared a video of him doing so. The whistleblowers claim Arthur jumped into this situation after local activists were already handling it, and that he adjusted his fundraising goals to $43,000 from $41,000 in the process. They also claim that he sent them technical sounding letters instead of legitimate legal action, basically accusing him of exaggeration. Finally, they claim Arthur's stacking up a portfolio of civil rights advocacy while not actually doing much on the ground. They're concerned with his auditing too. Since the organization is a private membership association, as I mentioned earlier, I asked Arthur about that too.
In the Houston situation, that right there, we never took credit for that. We just sent information to them, but we also have received communications from the DA that it was actually sent to the Civil Rights Division. So the information that we actually get back from the actual source. We don't take it from a second source, third source, fourth source. We actually get it from the source. We actually are getting communications back from the government office, corporation. We post everything. We post the emails. We actually highlight. We redact. Of course, we redact who we actually sent us the email, but it actually has it shows who it came from. So there's any smoke screens because I'm a college graduate. You always reference. You always cite. If you don't reference the site, you're just giving out information just because you're giving out information. If you go back and look at any of our tweets, we always attach the source. Who's spoken to us? So we don't just go out and say we won this situation. So we do put sources down there.
The way I see it, the whistleblower is right about one thing. Freedmen Nation intends to use their consolidated power to attack and penalize public figures. But it isn't unilateral. There's a whole community that's engaged and communicative behind the scenes. And although the whistleblowers are correct that it could easily lead to an abuse of power, I've already clarified that I don't think there's a financial exploitation angle here. There simply isn't enough money being raised to justify that position. And all the money seems to be accounted for. At worst, he's flexing more power than he has, which makes sense given the strategy we mentioned earlier. He doesn't actually want to go to court. He wants to flex most of their problems away before it ever gets to a legal proceeding. Therefore, he doesn't have to work with legal representation in that state, etc. Last but definitely not least, the trust claimed that they reclaimed 32 acres of land on behalf of freedmen. If that's real, it would obviously be a big deal, right? That kind of tangible reparations work should be exactly what every FBA, ADOS, and other Black American subgroup would want. He posted the paperwork as proof, but at least one person wasn't buying it and challenged that evidence as insufficient. And Arthur blocked him. According to Arthur, Freedmen Nation helps them claim that land back from the people who aren't supposed to be on it in the first place. This is based on the paper trail of taxes paid. And from there, they identified the genealogy of the claimants to get it assigned correctly. There was an instance where the trust was claiming to have reclaimed some land,
Yes.
quite a bit of acres on behalf of freedmen. Can you elaborate on some of that work?
Well, when we first initially started it, we didn't know where the land was. So when we started doing research through the assessor's office, trying to locate the land, we finally located the land. It was in other people's names. So we're trying to figure out how it was in other people's names. And then come to find out as we start digging deeper, the assessor came back and said, no, this is supposed to be in y'all names. It's supposed to be on the estate. Apparently, whoever those people were wasn't supposed to be there. When we say reclaimed, we did reclaim it from who was actually attached to that land. Now it's in a position where we're working with the family of building up the genealogy, all the branches for that land. Let's see what percentage. We already know percentage, and we already know who's the living heirs of that land now is, and who actually was paying the taxes at the time on that land. So basically, we actually help people reconstruct of the living heirs and genealogy. So then, who the land is passed on to based on the percentage on each living branch. So there's a lot more to it than just saying we reclaimed. We did reclaim because it wasn't supposed to be those other people's names in the first place.
I don't have the most experience with the process of reclaiming land, but I have done research around forced land seizure from discussing Malcolm Tanner's Texas invasion, where he had people moving out to the desert to occupy land he bought from the county. It is possible, but of course, there's much more work and paperwork to it than people would think. I've built my career on many things: deep coverage of social and political issues, scammer exposés, and legitimate education being the most prominent. Not every case is going to end up being a massive manipulation. And in this case, I don't think there's manipulation taking place at all. And I get how it may look like a grift from the outside. I haven't found any evidence of that. And I hope the whistleblowers who brought me this info can understand how I arrived at that conclusion. Thank y'all for watching. Stay healthy.